in staying, as we have keeping a disease-free system and thinking about our immune system and how we want to activate the immune system, sometimes we want to calm it. We're not always trying to activate it. And I'm wondering what some of the foods are that can do each of these things. Okay. And what are the times that we may want to calm it, to be clear?
So look, I mean, we talked about inflammation. Think about acute inflammation as something very healthy and important for your health. It was designed as a rapid response. Our inflammation systems like the EMTs. You call 911 when you've injured yourself, and the emergency response team, the paramedics that arrive to the injured site, are the inflammatory cells. And you get a little bit of inflammation there. Like if you cut yourself, think about it. After a few minutes, after a few moments, actually, the area is red and swollen. That's your acute inflammation, cleaning up, destroying any bacteria or harmful things that might be in the wound. And then, like an EMT, it'll go back to the base, and it's done. You don't need it anymore. Mm-hmm. That's acute inflammation. It's good and important for us. Chronic inflammation, which is when it doesn't go away, and it's continued to be inflammation and never puts out the inflammation. That's really dangerous. Acute inflammation is another way to think about it, is that if you go camping and you're out with your family, you make a campfire and you cook your food and you tell ghost stories over it, but then when it's time to sleep, you put out the fire. That's acute inflammation. It was good for the evening, and now you don't need it, so you put it out and you go to sleep. Now, chronic inflammation is if you don't put out the campfire and a wind comes by and blows the embers into the woods, and now you've got a wildfire, forest fire. Okay, now you can't put it out. And that's chronic inflammation. And that inflammation goes everywhere in your body. And when inflammation is everywhere, it disrupts every single organ in your body. And if you have a microscopic small cancer hiding out, or an existing cancer that your doctor knows about, inflammation will trigger it. It's like pouring gasoline onto the fire. It's going to make it grow faster and harder. All right. So there's no situation in which chronic inflammation is beneficial. None. Autoimmune diseases, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, you name it. Okay. Systemic sclerosis, Sjogren's syndrome, all of those things are chronic inflammation. IBD, okay, Crohn's disease, all of these things are characterized by excess inflammation, the wildfire running through your body. Now, your gut, as a health defense, tries to put out the wildfire because it can actually try to lower inflammation. But man, if it's run away, it's kind of like looking at the woods on fire with just a fire extinguisher in one hand, and you're like, man, this isn't going to make a dent, right? And so that's why it's so important to think about diet as an intervention. So what are some of the foods that can lower inflammation? Well, it turns out foods that contain vitamin C actually have been shown to lower inflammation. So what are some great foods that are anti-inflammatory with vitamin C? Tomatoes, broccoli, strawberries, red bell pepper, guava, just to name a few. Okay, citrus, of course.
Yummy.
Can all actually lower inflammation in the body. Now, how do we know this actually happens? And it's meaningful. There was a study in Japan, in the prefecture called Miyagi, Japan, where there was a lot of lupus running around in women. And what they found over a long-term study is that those women who ate more foods containing vitamin C, the ones that I should mention to you, red bell peppers and tomatoes, had a much lower incidence of lupus flares, and their inflammatory markers were also lower. Green tea, also a great way to lower inflammation. Got lots of anti-inflammatory power to it as well. And so, in my books, I actually talk about 200 foods in my first book, 100 foods in my different book. Like, this is about bounty. It's not about deprivation. The research has shown us we can lean into the foods that we like, we love, to be able to find something that's not only good, that we appreciate, we like, we enjoy, but it's good and good for us. And to me, that's really the best path forward. If you want to eat to beat disease, if you don't want to have to be on a diet, you want to eat to beat your diet to improve your metabolism, you can love your food to love your health. You can choose wisely. And I tell people, go back to most of the ingredients that I write about are found in the traditional recipes of the Mediterranean or Asia. Go back to the traditional recipes,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll find in some of these ingredients the stuff that if you went to a restaurant and you saw them on a menu, or you took a vacation and you went to Italy, Greece, Spain, or any of those Mediterranean countries, like, you're not going to be starving. I guarantee you, you're going to be enjoying yourself. And that's the point.
Yeah.
I think that the big kind of the big transition we're at with food and health and food as medicine is realizing we shouldn't fear our food. Food isn't about shame, guilt, or fear.
Mm-hmm.
We now know enough that we can actually make mindful choices and eat those things that activate our health defenses, improve our metabolism. Don't eat in excess, okay? You don't have to go on a starvation diet, but eat moderately. Listen to your body. Stop when you're satisfied before you're bloated, okay? And really try to relax about your food. Enjoy it. Take the time to savor your food. That's really what I believe is important for better health.
Yeah. What I love about you most is it's putting us in the driver's seat of our own lives and how we thrive. And it's so empowering to think about, because we have the power, we have the choices.